Hey guys, welcome to this week's podcast episode. I'm really excited about today's guest, Doug, and he's going to talk to us all about business, and he's got a fantastic story. And so today we're going to talk about growth gears, we're going to talk about fractional CMOs, and then he's got this interesting idea of random acts of marketing, which I want to hear more about. So, Doug, welcome.
Hi, thanks, Chris. Thanks you for having me on today.
Yeah, so today's talk is going to be all about marketing, and like I said, I love marketing. I'm a marketer at heart, so kind of tell people your story, your background, how you got started, and we'll get right into it.
All right. Well, I graduated from college with a degree in business and went into restaurant marketing first thing out of the gate. And in my early years in marketing, like I said, probably the first 20 years of my career, I worked for brands like Taco John's, which they're the ones that made the news recently because they just released Taco Tuesday, which was a big deal back in my day. And then I worked for Wendy's and Hardee's, and I learned a lot about what we at Chief Outsiders, the firm I work with, is called Little M Marketing. So think a small lowercase m for marketing, because that's all the things most people think of marketing is. Like, is it advertising? Is it a radio spot? Is it a digital ad? Is it a brochure? Is it, is it a website? Is it social media? Is it an influencer? Whatever, all that little m marketing stuff.
Yeah,
Learn about all those things. And obviously, some of those at my time, influencer marketing and digital was not a thing in the 90s. So I'll date myself just a little bit. But as we progress, that stuff is what we call little m marketing. I learned a lot about that in those roles. I progressed to what we call big M marketing. So a capital M, an uppercase M for marketing. In the 2000s, when I started working for Firehouse Subs and went on to Peter Pitt USA, that's where I started getting into brand positioning and strategy and working with agencies to really grow a brand. And the short story is I helped grow Firehouse Subs from about 230 locations to over 1,000 in about a 10-year period.
yeah, yeah, fantastic. And I actually love going to Firehouse Subs. Their food is delicious. So kind of talk about like marketing is really is a fascinating landscape, especially with digital and social media, influencer that you talked about. So kind of
Yep.
talk about how has digital transformation changed the marketing landscape, and what should businesses do to stay ahead?
All right. So that's a great question. There's a lot to unpack there. And I don't know if we've got time for all of it, but I'll try to do my best to try to keep it brief and, at a good level. Marketing is an art and a science. And prior to digital marketing, think digital, the advent of digital marketing, like in around what 2000 when the internet was invented, et cetera,
Yeah.
back in the admin days, marketing seemed to be all about getting your ads out on TV, newspaper, radio, things like that.
Yeah.
Right. And if you progress to 2005 and Google Analytics becomes a thing for websites later on, so a website becomes a big deal. And digital marketing, the way we know it today, has totally transformed marketing, because now if you're not big into understanding the pay-per-click model and what Google does and the meta platforms and things like that to advertise, you can kind of be in a bad place. But just kind of foreshadowing a term you used earlier, it's really easy to do a lot of random acts of marketing today, probably even easier today than it was 15, 20, 25 years ago, because there are so many places to spend your money. And marketing, when I say, is an art and a science. And before 2000, let's call it, was more art. There was a fair amount of science to it, thanks to Nielsen TV ratings and things, but a lot of art, not so much science. Now we're like almost all science, and the pendulum has swung the other way. And there's lots of science to it, not nearly as much art. You can kind of tell when you see bad ads, right, and bad characters. The best way to, and I'm going to summarize this very easily and kind of foreshadow the other term you used earlier, is the growth gears. The best way to do good marketing, understand marketing, is start at the beginning of the growth gears and understand your customer and understand your competition and understand your company. All right. So if you don't have, as a company, whatever widget you sell, whether it's a service, it's a product, or whatever, if you don't have a good understanding of what problem it solves for your customer, you're going to be in a bad way. Because
Mm.
this principle still stays, Chris. When I was in college, I learned that the marketing principle is the donut principle. Find a hole and fill it. So find a need and fulfill that need. You're going to have a lot of success and make a lot of money. And marketing ends up being about all the stuff that follows in. So I've got a product, I've got a widget that fulfills a certain need. I know exactly who my target market is. That's when you can start to make magic happen, because now you talk to your target market, find out that they like widgets that are blue and round and show up only on Saturdays, right? And then you realize that you can put your marketing efforts towards Fridays and Saturdays to get them to come find this blue round widget on Saturdays, and you're going to make millions. And it's got to be almost literally that specific and that tight for things to really work. There's a lot of ways to get halfway there, not understand your customer, not understand their need. And too often nowadays, we're all about selling our wares and not understanding what the customer really wants. And that's, at the end of the day, what marketing is all about, is fulfilling a customer's need.
Yeah. I love that. And so when you talk about your first thing is, these random acts of marketing, is that just assuming just basically people just randomly just like, posting on the, without being intentional? Is that what you're referring to?
That's exactly a great summary. So the story I like to tell is the firm that I'm with, Chief Outsiders. We have a lot of B2B business. And you think about a lot of entrepreneurs that start a business, and whatever they sell to other businesses. And I find I'm using hand gestures, Chris, and I realize my video is not on. So sorry
That's
about
okay.
that. But the entrepreneur starts selling a widget to other businesses, this blue round widget or whatever on Saturdays. And he sells a lot of it. And at some point, his business is big enough, he or she decides they need some help. So they hire a salesperson. All right. Because
Yeah.
the entrepreneur, the founder, they've got to do some more administrative stuff. They've got family things, whatever. They've got other demands on their time. Right. So they hire a salesperson. The salesperson does a great job, brings in new revenue. Everything's great, doing their normal selling thing. That's kind of like, even today, Chris, it's been a lot of person to person, not much of a digital journey. We now know that the digital journey can be up to 80% of a buyer's journey, but for sake of the story, it's mostly personal, right? It's not much digital. It's all personal selling. And
Yeah.
then the salesperson kind of hits a plateau. They hire some more salespeople. They hit another plateau. They hire more salespeople. They finally get to the point where the salespeople go, we need a brochure for the conference we're going to next week. Can somebody make us a brochure? And that salesperson, without a marketing department, has to go figure out how to do that at Kinko's or some FedEx office or whatever. And then somebody else goes, hey man, I hear this. Websites are cool now. We need a website. Somebody make us a website. And without understanding your customer, without understanding what trips their trigger, what problem you're solving, etc., you do these random things without any actual positioning or understanding what the customer wants. You're doing a total random act of marketing.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And then kind of talk about this idea of marketing, little m versus big M marketing. What's the difference?
So to avoid random acts of marketing, you need to start with the big M marketing. So that goes to the growth gears that you mentioned earlier. Growth gears is a concept that Chief Outsiders uses, and it's a simplified concept, Chris, that like when I was in corporate life, we had brand pillars, we had brand spheres, we had agencies and different consulting companies all have different methods, but our founder, Art Saxby, wrote a book called The Growth Gears, and he simplified all that stuff. So he made it for any CEO could read this book like an airplane ride, right? It's the concepts are simple, but people complicate them. So to understand, going back to the growth gears, growth gear one is about insights. So that's what we call growth gear one, insights. Learn about your customer, your competition, and your company. And like when we work with a company that the entrepreneur, the founder, or the current owners have a great mission, vision, and values, that stuff is golden for starting to build marketing material once you learn more about what your customers want and what they need and how you solve their problems. All right. So that's where the company comes from. And then also understanding the competition, which is going to start influencing pricing strategy and things as you move on to growth gear number two, which is strategy, which is from what you've learned, what do you offer your customers? What do your offerings look like? What kind of strategies are you going to use to find those customers and sell to or market to those customers? So are you going to be a TV channel, an over-the-top TV channel? Are you going to be Google ads, or you need to be conferences and websites, that sort of thing?
Mm.
And so once you form those strategies on, exactly where and how to find your customers, you know what your product is, you've got your pricing set and all those things figured out, then you move on to gear number three, which is execution. And execution is building that website, doing the pay-per-click ads, doing social posts, doing some things on LinkedIn if you're in B2B, whatever you've decided works in your strategy. And that's all the stuff. And the third gear execution is the little M marketing.
Yeah.
And the big M marketing comes more or less between gear one and gear two, but the strategy is where you start really coming up with that brand proposition, the unique selling proposition, some people call it, that your product or service serves your customers that nobody else does. You've got to be very unique. The more unique you are, the better you articulate that, the better off you'll be.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that alone is worth the whole entire podcast episode, really gold nuggets, gems. So then the next question is, what are growth gears and how can they be used to drive business growth?
Well, that goes back to how you work them. So the growth gears, that first gear is the insights. And when you study your company, if you don't have a mission, vision, and values, you want to come up with those because you're eventually going to get to a point where we build a brand house, other agencies, other consultancies do different things, but you figure out what problems does your product or offering solve? What are the benefits, right? Not the features. Too often advertising is full of features, right?
Yeah.
Just because somebody says this is the steel is more solid and more dense in our product and in our product than somebody else's, our competitor's product. That only matters if that denser steel means your product breaks half as often as the other one does, right? So whatever that's the feature or the benefit rather, the feature is the thick steel. So you figure that out in the insight stage, which starts to inform the strategy. And then the strategy, that's where you start to figure out that, hey, we're going to do some advertising. We've got to enlist some content writers or whatnot in our strategy for our widget that is blue and round and can be found on Saturdays. Now we have more dense steel in this widget than our competitors and it works better in your machines because it breaks half as often, or maybe it breaks never. Maybe it's probably better, would be a better claim, right? I'm making these things up as we go along, but to try to give you an idea with some kind of exaggerated features is what you're looking for.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's
Go ahead.
insight, strategy, and then that third gear, execution, and get to that little marketing and actually go to market. That's what we call the go to market strategy becomes.
Yeah, I love that. Next question is developing a strong brand strategy, and what are the essential elements of a successful brand strategy?
Oh boy, I'm not trying to come up with words that I don't repeat what I've just said because you do. That's a good question. A successful brand strategy is going to be very well articulated in like we have our strategy is to appeal to because goes to the positioning statement layout. It's four and fill in the blank. Let's see if I can find a visual aid for myself so I don't just go from memory. A positioning statement has it's a certain architecture, so it's four and you list the target market. All right, and the target market might be it's not. I don't just mean like 18 to 34-year-old males, although it could be that. But ideally, you want to add something to our product is targeted towards active, young, athletic types who need, XYZ. So the positioning statement gets into the target market, what the benefit is, and what part of the segment it is, how the brand fits into the segment, and answers all those questions that you would get going through the strategy session or the strategy part of the second growth gear strategy. And I'm not articulating it well, Chris, so I apologize. So I'll try to start over. It's very important to understand who your target market is, what problem your offering is going to solve, what benefits you have, and how you're unique or different from your competition. That's the better way to sum it up.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And then, we'll talk about over the last 3 decades, you've seen how marketing has evolved in some key lessons, and then also marketing for franchises because you've worked with big time franchises. One thing I want to talk about is because AI is kind of basically pushing itself into this whole ecosystem, whether welcome or unwelcome. So tell us, it's kind of like, just like basically like pushing itself in. So what are your thoughts on AI, how to use it or the good, bad, all of that?
So I've only experimented with a couple of platforms. I am a ChatGPT Plus user and subscriber. And I am of the belief, and this is pretty common right now, that AI is not going to take anybody's job, but people that know how to use AI well is going to take somebody's job. And as an example, I've used it to write personas. So go back to that marketing strategy piece. There's not only a target market. Most brands typically have a couple of different personas, descriptions of segment of people that use their product or service. and ChatGPT works really well for that service. I'm not a content creator, but if I were writing blogs either for myself or Chief Outsiders, and I really should be for my business development, I would provide some ideas and I would start with ChatGPT. The trick about AI is, as you probably know, but cannot rely on whether it's Claude, ChatGPT, or the zillions of other AI out there, because there is an AI for like every purpose now. You've got to be knowledgeable enough in whatever business or niche you're doing to understand that when you prod it and prompt it, and have good prompts, that when the answer comes back, you know enough to know whether it's been hallucinating or it's factual or it's not, and then you need to edit it and correct it appropriately so it's not totally AI generated. And so it's going to be huge. It's going to impact SEO next year, and for all businesses. Google's just released this generative whatever experience, a generative search experience.
Yeah.
SGE, I think they call search generative experience. It's big, and it's going to impact marketing probably as much as it does anything else, because it's going to impact us not only in SEO and even coding and things, but a lot of content creation in other places.
Yeah, it's amazing. And basically, I heard now the algorithms and the engines, Google, Microsoft, all these, like there's so much AI generated content, like they can't handle it. So they're just basically lit, because Google was saying, oh, they're gonna limit content created by ChatGPT, and basically everybody's using it. So how can they, it's kind of like a sudden surge of traffic. So really interesting. And I really enjoyed this conversation. Kind of head it out or close it out for us, kind of talking about how marketing's evolved over the last 3 decades, some key lessons, and how can people follow you, check out your work, contact you, etc.
Well, yeah, thank you for that. So, on one hand, marketing hasn't really evolved that much, in that you still have to have a strong product or service or offering, right? And then figure out who your customers are, what needs you fill, and have a great brand strategy and marketing strategy to make things work, right? The big difference where it's been transformative, and AI is going to do even more to this, and the advent of digital marketing, is the advertising, the little m part of the marketing equation. So creating strategy and brand positioning, that still is necessary, has to happen. There are some automated ways you can make that work better for you, etc. But it's still roughly the same principles. What really changed is all this, pay-per-click, influencers, all the social media, all the different things online. That's been transformative. So understanding where the customer is, how to find them in the different channels of advertising and public relations is where all the biggest changes have happened, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And then to close it out, my name's Doug Reifschneider. I'm a fractional chief marketing officer at Chief Outsiders. Chief Outsiders is the largest fractional chief marketing officer firm in the country. Got about 120 of us. You can find me at, I'm actually got a profile page on LinkedIn, as everybody does. I've also got a profile page on Chief Outsiders, so chiefoutsiders.com, and just click on, find CMOs and put in Doug, and I'll show up. There were 3 Dougs at Chief Outsiders a while ago, and now I think there's only 1 or 2 of us. Maybe 2 of us. So you put in Doug, that's enough to find me, to get my profile on the Chief Outsiders website.
Yeah. And for all the audience out there listening, Doug for coming on. Really, he gave a masterclass and really a lot of great wisdom. And be sure to follow him on all of his social media, which will be in the links in the show notes. And with that, thanks so much for coming onto the podcast.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks for having me.